right. Hey, Krish. Okay, I mean, we have so many rock stars on today. This is awesome. So really big fan, Krish, and we've been partners for a really long time. So really looking forward to this chat today. And as was just mentioned, we're going to try and get some useful tips from you to the audience. Everybody here is trying to start up or scale up their business. So yeah, let's get started.
Thanks for having me here, and I'll do my best.
I think, as almost everybody would do these days, I spent a lot of time going into a bit of a rabbit hole last night on ChatGPT, looking up how to scale a business. I have personal, a little bit of experience in startups, but not as much as you. So I want to be clued up on this thing. So I got to a few different topics. Quite late at night, because obviously these AI models are very encouraging, so they keep encouraging you and they say really nice things to you to keep you going deeper and deeper. So when I was looking at scale-ups and different ways to scale up businesses, I came across three main sort of models or founder profiles or stereotypes, let's say, in the way that businesses can be scaled up. And the first one being a market-driven founder, which is a founder that looks at, to paraphrase this lengthy definition, a gap or an issue in the market and tries to solve it. A vision-driven founder would be a founder who is looking to try and create some kind of change, looking at something for a future long-term vision. And then finally, the third one would be a customer-centric driven founder who would be looking to really focus 100% on the needs and the requirements of a type of customer. So my first question for you today is, which one of these three profiles do you think you'd identify with the most?
Okay. I think it'll always be a spectrum, right? Everybody will have to wear multiple hats. My bias would be strongly towards customer-driven. I'll explain why. So engineer by training and 10 years of experience before starting up. And the reason to come together to start the company was to learn how to build an organization, especially a software product organization, inspired by the likes of Joel Spolsky's Fog Creek software and the Joel on software.com blog and others were early inspirations as a developer to say at some point we want to learn how to build a company. So it's not an idea-first company, it's a team-first company. And me and my co-founders, especially one of them was my classmate. We had been saving up over 10 years to say at some point we'll start. We just did not know when, and we didn't put pressure on ourselves to say when to start, and eventually started the company. And when we started, it was just we picked, the problem itself was a means to actually building an organization. You need a problem to solve, right? To build an organization is how we picked it and started solving it. And one of the fascinating things I find, just last week I was meeting a CFO of FreePick, one of our customers in Barcelona, and he was saying something very interesting. He said, action is feedback. And it was demonstrated beautifully by one of his teammates, where when they were casually going for lunch, a group of them were just standing there, not deciding where to go, and one of them just decided to just start walking in a direction. And it just so happened that somebody else said, somebody who knew the exact place said, no, don't go there. We have to go in this direction. And everybody started walking in the direction. Sometimes that's all we actually have to start doing, which is you pick a problem, start solving it, and then you realize over time that the course correction happens through market validation and continuous feedback that comes from talking to customers and that type of validation. So that's generally the view, right? And what happened in the product market fit journey for us is also an example of how that happened, right? So we've been doing this for now 13 years, but I would say the last 7 years we have scaled nicely. But the first 5-6 years was spent in finding product market fit in a space like this. So a lot of that is due to feedback through customers is how we actually discover the right direction as a first-time founder. I'm grateful for the opportunity that I'm actually sitting here talking about a 13-year journey, even while building that first company. But a lot of that I attributed to just listening closely to customer feedback.
Okay, and you're an engineer by trade to start, so obviously thinking about trying to solve problems for customers is kind of, you think that's where it started?
That is correct, right? You do have a point of view, and in the more patterns that we actually see through the lens of serving thousands of customers, we can actually see around the corner in terms of where the market is going. Like especially the innovators in, let's say the innovation, again, it's not just the product part, but there are also some interesting go-to-market innovation that actually happens in some companies. And some companies that are at scale actually do acquisitions and interesting monetization through acquisitions or partnerships, right? So all kinds of things that happen in our space, especially solving the billing and revenue space, we get to see what's around the corner that you would attribute to having a point of view, vision, and all of that, or like market forces and understanding of this. But internally, as a DNA of the team, one thing that we strongly push the organization and every single person to also do is get into customer calls, get in front of customers, because it's that context, there is nothing that can substitute for that.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, and so you know, in terms of this journey, so you know, I think maybe let's, for everybody's sake here, let's go back to the beginning. You know, what has your journey been, and where did you start? Just to be...
Okay. Yeah, I now live in Amsterdam, but I'm from Chennai, India. Chennai is southeast. We only have 3 seasons: hot, hotter, hottest, and then monsoon rains. And that's where I grew up, and for majority of my life, I've been there. I also had the fortune of being able to work in IT services industry, implementing products globally. So lived in US for 3.5 years. I've lived in some parts of Europe. And all through the journey, I stayed in touch with, after graduation, stayed in touch with one of my co-founders, now co-founders. And all my co-founders actually worked at Zoho. And Zoho is $1 billion revenue bootstrap now since 96 or 97. And grateful that a company like that exists. Like almost every ecosystem needs that companies, those initial companies that actually spawns an ecosystem, like NordVPN right now in Lithuania, or Skype in Estonia, like Zoho is for that, for us. And a lot of us actually got trained in that school, right? And my co-founders learned how to build global products there. I know how to implement global products. And that's how we actually came together to say, okay, we want to learn how to build a company, and started doing this. We bootstrapped. Thankfully, we didn't raise capital because we didn't know that we could build with other people's money initially. So we saved up and started doing it for a couple of years. And then we raised some capital. Axel and Tiger found us. And
so you realized at some point that you could actually
raise capital, and more importantly,
you didn't have to bootstrap for the entire existence of your company.
Correct, and more importantly, you, like through the first 2 years, you're learning compounds very quickly, where you realize that it's not just, you are not just fighting build versus buy, but there is actually a much bigger category, not just a product, but there is actually a category to be created. You cannot time the market, but you can see a point of view that there is a bigger problem here. And the surface area of the problem is much larger, and the verticals in which this problem exists is actually only growing in significance. And the more realization is there, I think my view is the homogeneity to believe that bootstrapping or venture, like either one is actually good or bad, I think shuts the door on the other paths, right? And being a bootstrapper to some degree like makes you scrappy, and then you apply that mindset, but we made that money, whatever we raised, to last for a very long time till we found product market fit before we raised capital subsequently in 2018 or late 2018. Right, till that time we actually tried to make that money work and scaled. So one is recognizing market opportunity and taking feedback from people who know how to study TAM, SAM. I didn't do MBA, so I have no idea how to actually do any of those things when we started. So I learned it through the VCs and analysts who actually taught us how to actually do that. And yeah, we iterated through that and scaled. And then we actually started scaling. We realized that this is the time to actually push the pedal when it comes to scaling the organization. And we also realized one more thing, which is the ambition of the customers who are actually beginning with us, which is companies wanted to, like, grateful for customers like Freshworks, which scaled from the early millions with Chargebee, and we were able to scale the product with them and through their ambition to actually go IPO, we were able to support it. So today it's a $700 million plus ARR company, but to support that type of ambition, we had to also move up market, not just in the product capabilities, service capabilities, and also in our go-to-market to serve customers like that. Then Calendly, Typeform, and a number of others actually started using it. And we were able to see that there was a certain deliberateness needed in the product execution to be multi-segment, multiple products, and also define the boundaries of the product that we would actually continue to build, where we would partner, and how to actually build a holistic solution. So that was a very deliberate upmarket solution, because you cannot go with just a point solution and expect somebody to continue to scale and also move into mid-market or enterprise. You have to find a more holistic solution through a combination of some of these things that you build, things that you actually partner and imagine and deliver that. So all those things happen. We have raised over $450+ million of capital over time, and now building over 13 years, 1,000 people company with more than 50% of the customers in North America from the beginning, 40% in Europe, and 10% in Australia, New Zealand, Singapore region. Mostly built with inbound marketing. I said from Chennai, but initially couldn't go meet customers to actually get them. So which means you learn from the likes of HubSpot about what is inbound marketing, right? As an engineer, you have no idea how to do that. So you learn. And so we did inbound marketing. Then subsequently, when we actually went into mid-market and enterprise, also the outbound and then partner channels. But more importantly, we continue to have a freemium model and then a self-service and sales-assisted model to now the enterprise model as well. So that's a transition that we have also been going through, serving the market.
And this is all fascinating. And so I'm thinking about today's market context, right? And so, the scaling journey that you've been on and scaling today, maybe it would be good to hear how you see the current market context and what you're trying to do to be different.
Sure. To put things in perspective, right? Pretty much through early 2000s, most of us were just, like most companies, were trying to prove that SaaS is here to exist and it's possible to scale it. And through 2010s, through 2020, single product, single motion, whether it's a product-led growth or a sales-led growth or partnership or whichever channel that worked for you, with a single product, hit scale, right, was the playbook. And the more companies actually came up and SaaS became something that, like the norm, and the penetration when it comes to multiple verticals and all of that, the competition became intense. And the holy grail in SaaS is, one, lowest cost of customer acquisition. Number two, LTV. Right? Number three, how do you mitigate churn, and how do you keep more customers, and how are you able to grow with them, like optimizing LTV. And the answer, right, one of those playbooks that emerged and became public knowledge from the early 2010s was Atlassian Story. Zoho Story has always been there, but it was not very public. And so multi-product became like something normal. So one of the transitions we are now seeing in the market is this, to optimize for some of these three particular levers. The trend we are seeing is, one, more and more people are actually thinking about multiple products or services that they are introducing to be able to maximize that lifetime value and stickiness and services. Number two, we are seeing more effort in actually finding more channels through which you are actually playing in multiple segments, whether it's a product-led growth or sales-led, right, and reseller channels. Like those are actually becoming more, attempts are being made to figure this out, like no matter the size and scale of the company, right? And the market is also acquisitive to some degree, which means even whether you build a product or you are actually acquiring products, you actually have an opportunity to repackage capabilities to be able to sell better. A case in point is, look at companies like Gong versus SalesLoft versus Outreach, right? Each one has a very pronounced different entry point and what they are known for. But you look at deeper into the capability set, today the feature set will actually look like they all have the same capability set, but each one is known for something different. Outreach is known for ability to go reach out to customers through outbound, whereas Gong is known for the intelligence, but actually most of them offer the same capability set. Now, some of them used to be partners, right? And now increasingly you have a situation where they are looking more and more like competitors. And this is an interesting dynamic that actually affects the way either you look at this as an opportunity or a threat because of the increased, these are the constraints for pretty much everyone, right? When it comes to solving the LTV, churn, and growth, and lower cost of acquisition. And these adjacencies are having that challenge. So it is a point in time perspective of what is happening in the market right now, and I have my views of how you would want to approach it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we do. We see it similarly at Avalara as well. I mean, the situation that we're in, and actually, so to give a little bit of context, is from day dot, our relentless focus and our passion that's been driving us this whole time has been to take a really complex thing, tax compliance and taxes in really complicated areas, and just simplify it ultimately for our customers. And what that means is actually having a partner-centric model from the very beginning. The reason for that is because in 2004 when we launched, it was already becoming a case that businesses wanted to integrate, and you wanted to integrate into this amazing cloud-based platform. And in order to do that, we needed to get loads of signed partners to integrate because we wanted to make it, again, seamless for businesses to use our software. So that ultimate simplicity for us had to be partner-centric. It was crucial to our very existence. So where we're at today, and it's really interesting to hear you say this, is indeed everybody's expanding horizontally, and what might have previously been seen as a business that we can cooperate with and collaborate with as a partner, because everybody was specialized back then, now there's so much more overlap. So just, reiterating what you're saying there, we see exactly the same thing. And I suppose the question that I would have for you is, given this market context, more overlap, increased competition. I mean, what advice do you have?
I think customers and solutions, right? And how do you lean into that? I think is where we will find our own unique identity, right? Our case in point in our space is, when we started, a lot of questions that I used to get from the VCs is recurring billing, even PayPal has it. Why do you need to build it? That used to be a question. Right, but today you look at the market, Salesforce is actually announcing revenue lifecycle management as a solution, right? And Stripe has, which is a significant partner for us, is also having a set of capability set which directly competes with us on one side, right? And then there are CRM products that are actually looking at the same problem from a CPQ to solve the billing, right? Then how do you actually think about all of this and say, this is big players coming in, and how do you actually approach it? And this is actually happening in almost every category, every adjacency that you can imagine for all of us. And this is how I frame it internally, which is the answer is actually always in the solution, the completeness of solution that works for a customer, and the obsession with which we can actually look closer and deeper into the problem is always at the intersection of not just our solution, which is not necessarily a point solution, but even if the surface area is big, your completeness of solution always works better in terms of building optionality with the partners. This is why that for that market context, one of the things I would always strongly encourage that we all do is still lean in strongly with what looks like a competitor, to also figure out ways in which we can partner. And it's not just that the more we actually withdraw, the more isolated we become, and the cost of acquiring customers actually goes higher, right? Deliberately building that level of confidence to internally be able to do that requires open dialogue within the organization as to why, right, you would want to do it, to find a more complete solution for customers.
So,
I think, and more importantly, I think you guys have done this amazingly well, and I would love to also know a little bit more about how you have approached it from your perspective, where there are examples.
Yeah. So I think the key I think the key for us is, again, having this vision where ultimately, we can, again, lean into these partnerships, even though there are competitors as well, right? And it all boils down to having this focus on what's going to be right for the customer, and it ends up being mutually beneficial for everybody. And building these almost mini ecosystems, really, which you're talking about solutions. I mean, this is it. We have this vision of building ecosystems within which we're delivering really high quality solutions that ultimately service our customers' needs in collaboration with partners, even though they can look a lot like competitors and can be competitors.
Right. I'm going to say something very controversial, right? That many of us would treat it as controversial. My view is, as software creators, most of us have been sitting on a pedestal with some level of arrogance to say we deliver outcomes to customers. Actually, we don't, right? We somehow expect our customers to extract outcomes out of the software.
Yeah.
Right? And that requires leaning in more into understanding the services layer that actually extracts the outcomes out of the software, or the people who actually extract the outcomes to the customers. And there is a point in time opportunity now to, one, look at the GenAI capabilities that are actually substituting for this to get you closer to the services layer and deliver the outcomes. Number two is also leaning in more strongly with the partners to actually think about how to deliver that outcome and the solution for the customer.
Yeah.
I think this is a fantastic opportunity because the seat-based pricing models and just the utilization-based pricing that we actually have been doing there is a disruption coming. Like almost every scaled player has a disruptor coming in, not based on the delivery model of software itself, but actually through the revenue model change that's actually happening in the market. That type of disruption is coming, right? And the only way that companies are going to be able to reinvent and stay relevant to the future for customers is by leaning in more through this lens.
Yeah. And I think I am just going to add one other thing on this is a big challenge for us is agility, and we need to remain newly focused on being agile in this market in order to find ways to deliver that in the way that you've just described, especially considering we are quite a sizable business now. We're constantly telling ourselves to behave like a startup, be agile, seek these creative opportunities. But there's 5,000 staff at Avalara. For anybody who doesn't know, we are a 20-year-old startup, essentially. We've gone through various different iterations of our business. And yeah, it can get harder and harder to keep that mindset. But we're constantly reminding ourselves it's about the vision and remaining agile to try and seek ways that we can do that.
I think there is a particular example that you were speaking about, right? About verticals that you were able to access previously that you did not have.
Which is going to be my point on this is, where our partnership started between our businesses. Avalara started in the e-commerce and retail sector in the United States. Why? Because that's where the taxes were most complicated after the dot-com boom. Everybody wanted to start selling their goods online, and all of a sudden you had 13,000 tax jurisdictions, and before I was a shop owner, and I had my tax information sent to me every month, and that was it. But that changed drastically. But as time grew, we again in this mindset of doing one thing really well, in the late 2000s, 2010s was how can we find more verticals to do that in, and I think where Chargebee and Avalara's partnership has been incredibly fruitful for Avalara in the last 10 years is helping us enter this new vertical, which I guess we stumbled upon in a way, which has opened up a huge revenue stream for us. SaaS subscription-based models, not necessarily areas that we were thinking. We were retail, brick and mortar stores, e-commerce.
So even for an at-scale company, you discovered a new vertical because
exactly.
The synergy. We had no idea that we were actually bringing that to your table, right? So I think that's where the opportunity is in terms of these partnerships and overlaps.
Exactly. Yeah. I think we're at time.
Yeah.
Does anybody have a question for Krish? Can we take questions? I don't know. I should have asked this
I
to
think
the organizers, actually.
Probably over time.
Would anybody like to shout out? I can hear you. I can maybe repeat the question if... Sorry, I'm improvising here.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Vidhi. I'm a co-founder as well from Norway. So lived in India, but then moved to Norway and then decided to leave an employment and start my own company. So that's been fun. My question to you, Krish, is really given your background as a tech founder, and you were quite honest about it, and also the challenges you faced as you scaled the company. What were the impacts of the cultural sort of learnings you had to do, let's say building a company in India vis-a-vis in Europe that was different?
Okay. So one is customers, right? And then the second is the employee base becoming more diverse, right? Initially, the employee base was not very diverse, right? Coming from, like, you play to your strengths or where you can find talent and you start building that. But when it comes to customers, leaning in more strongly to understand the behaviors of different customers in different geographies was very critical. An example is US customer, right? The decision making is very different, and you deal with the customer in dark area, then you are actually talking about somebody very structured, they don't want to be sold to, and will say, okay, stop, I'll do the homework and then let me come back to you. And the directness with which the decision process actually works is very completely different, and you cannot, you have to feel, they have to feel in control, and you learn to stay organized a lot more to give comfort to the customer, right? You cannot keep introducing something completely new that actually throws everything into chaos, right? And a deadline and a word as a commitment, and cultural nuances exist. Like if I say I get back to you, and with a time frame, right? It's a promise in certain cultures, and it is a maybe in certain other culture, right? So it's very important to actually balance it. Vocalizing and deliberately talking about it internally has been very helpful. And the same thing translates the moment actually people of different cultures come in to continue to preserve the core of the company, the spirit of how you actually are building the company while still becoming more global as an organization is very important. So continuously talking about the conflicts that arise, and internally we invested in a L&D function that facilitated training for people who were first time working with a company that was started in India, right, on the other side. And then for the folks here to also learn to actually work with everybody. Like, so cross-cultural immersion and book recommendations, like Erin Meyer's book, or like a lot of a culture map and several other things were deliberate requirements for people to actually get comfortable. And then, of course, at a leadership level, more of this dialogue was needed, and with facilitated coaching and everything. So there is a certain level of deliberateness that was needed to actually make that happen, especially with origins of a company coming from India but serving a global customer base.
Thanks. I think, as with the last session, do we have anything else to add? I think it might be okay to go over by a minute.
And I think if I take 1 minute, right, I think yesterday we were doing a workshop and this particular conversation resonated with people, so I want to make sure that I'm sharing this if it's useful. One of the biggest learnings through the journey is the last 5 years especially, Goddard spoke about this as well, but understanding that especially this is a game of business with made up rules has been a big shift in mindset, right? Because there are good times, there are hard times, and then you are actually putting things in perspective, and there are life and in the context of life and everything else that's going on in the world. One of the most important things to continuously internalize is, one, the game is interesting because you play with intensity, you play to win. And you're generally, the competition actually, when it overwhelmingly becomes part of the internal dialogue, it's important to put things in perspective by orienting the organization towards the customers rather than competition. The reason why this is important is the competition only levels up your game. Who you play with, which league you actually play, only levels up your game. So embrace it. This is what we actually asked for when we all started, right? We wanted to be in the consideration set with some of the best in the world. And when that is actually happening, embrace the competition, and also remember and reiterate again and again that it's actually a game of business. and you are playing to win with a preference to win, right? And that is important. And then the second part is, in the game of business, there is nobody standing there with a checkered flag to say, okay, here is a trophy, right? And nobody's actually handing over, because a business that actually looks like they are on a tier and then doing amazingly well may not exist in 5 or 10 years, depending on the way they actually execute. It's your choice and your control. And there are examples of companies that actually continue to compound steadily over a next 20, 30-year period. Also, there are examples of that, right? So putting some of this in context to one, like, realize that you can play with some level of lightness, and there are choices and preferences, and this is what you actually ask for. And while treating people right, how do you actually balance that with building an organization and cost of building the organization, right? I think has been very helpful by one personally going through a coaching journey to ensure that we are scaling and not becoming the bottleneck of the organization as leaders, and also allowing the team to be able to play a little lighter, so not make it too intense. I think has been rewarding to make sure that you are actually having fun building.
This is why you guys are great. Yeah, you're playing the game of business, you're playing to win, but you're having fun. And it reminds me a lot of our founder, Scott, as well, who has been playing this game for over 20 years through various iterations of it. Avalara went through raising, went IPO, now owned by private equity, probably going to go IPO again. And Scott has been at the forefront, at the top, leading the company, running it from day dot. And this is how I see him as well. He's playing the game and he's loving it and having fun along the way.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Krish. Thank you, it's good. Thank you, everyone. I think we'll let you go for the rest of your day. Thank you, Krish.
Thank you. Thank you so much.